Fu Thao Media Ven, welcome to a world where fame is decided by blood and secrets lie buried beneath the toll of ancient bells. That night, Tianvu Square blazed with torchlight. The Grand Alliance Assembly drew countless masters from every sect, and at its center stood the duel between Han Da-min, the quiet young formation master, and Tomak Li, the renowned sword cultivator of Tian Huyen Pavilion. When the opening drums thundered, Tomak Li's figure split into countless after-images, her sword chi weaving a labyrinth of lethal intent. The audience held its breath, for her illusory sword formation had never been broken. Amid the storm of flashing blades, Han Da-min did not rush to counterattack. His gaze remained calm, tracing every fluctuation of spiritual energy, every subtle distortion in space. Then a deep resonant chime echoed across the arena. The heavenly resonance, ancient bell emerged, its sound waves rolling outward like an invisible tide, forcing every illusion to tremble. From that moment on, the tide of battle began to turn. But victory in the arena was only the surface. In the shadows of Huyen Cook sect, a foreign spiritual force was quietly awakening. And Han Da-min, whether he wished it or not, had become the first to touch that hidden secret. Tianvu Square still trembled with the lingering resonance of the bell, as the battle officially surged into its climax. Facing Han Da-min, Tomak Li slowly raised the tip of her sword, her gaze cold as ice. In the span of a single breath, her figure split into 3, then 7, then countless forms as arcs of sword light wove together into a radiant net that sealed off the entire arena. The illusory sword formation was fully unleashed. A wave of alarm rippled through the stands. No one could discern the true body anymore. Every afterimage carried genuine killing intent. Every strike was powerful enough to pierce protective aura. Han Da-min was forced into the center of the encirclement, as though a single lapse in focus would leave him gravely wounded. Yet he did not panic. Instead of counterattacking, Han Da-min took small continuous steps along a strange trajectory, as if calculating rather than evading. His eyes closed briefly, listening to the faint vibrations of space itself. Amid the blinding sea of sword light, he realized something: no matter how perfect the illusions appeared, the flow of spiritual energy could never completely conceal its frequency of fluctuation. A blade sliced through the air, grazing his shoulder and tearing his robe. No blood fell, but an invisible crack had already begun to form within the formation, and Han Da-min was the only one who could see it. That opening existed for no more than the blink of an eye, but for Han Da-min, it was enough. The instant Tomak Li's blade brushed past his shoulder, he suddenly came to a halt at the very heart of the formation. The seemingly suicidal move caused the entire audience to fall silent. Yet instead of drawing his sword to counterattack, Han Da-min slowly raised his hand. A dark ancient aura materialized in his palm, the heavenly resonance ancient bell. The first chime rang out deep and muted. It was not loud nor piercing, but heavy and profound, as if striking directly against the framework of space itself. Sound waves spread outward in every direction, leaving no blind spots untouched. The once perfect sword afterimages began to tremble ever so slightly, like the surface of water disturbed by a falling stone. No matter how refined Tomak Li's movements were, each step produced a distinct vibrational frequency. Han Da-min closed his eyes. The second chime resounded. This time he did not see with his eyes, he listened with his spiritual perception. Among dozens of chaotic frequencies, one rhythm remained steady, stronger, more real than the rest. That was the true body. His eyes snapped open at that precise moment. In a flash, he shifted forward. The sword in his hand swept horizontally, slicing through layers of illusion, like tearing through mist. The illusory sword formation shattered. And for the first time, Tomak Li stood revealed, her gaze no longer cold, but flickering with unmistakable shock. The moment the illusory sword formation shattered, Tianvu Square fell into a deathly silence. Han Da-min's sword tip stopped just half an inch from Tomak Li's throat. The wind stilled. The sword light faded. The final toll of the bell lingered, then dissolved into the air. The outcome was undeniable. An uproar erupted. Tian Huyen Pavilion, a power that had never tasted defeat in 3 consecutive grand assemblies, had been struck down before the eyes of all by an unknown youth. Tomak Li tightened her grip on her sword, her lips pale, yet there was no hatred in her eyes, only disbelief. High above on the grandstand, Tehan Uyen's expression hardened like steel. The honor of his sect had been torn apart before thousands. As Han Da-min withdrew his blade and turned to leave the arena, a terrifying pressure suddenly descended. Killing intent. In an instant, the air froze solid. Tehan Uyen had stepped forward. The match is over. But this debt is not. Wark's spiritual power surged as he raised his hand. And then a calm voice cut through the oppressive force. The assembly has its rules. The one who spoke was Luk Kin Chun of Huinkuk sect. The words were light as wind, yet strong enough to halt an open slaughter. Han Da-min understood clearly today. He had won a match, but he had also carved his name into a ledger of enmity. And the banquet to come would not be a simple celebration. The banquet was held that very night at Huinkuk sect. Lanterns hung high and soft music drifted through the air as though no killing intent had existed just hours before. Luke Kin Trun personally came forward to greet Han Da-min, his smile gentle, his words courteous. Brother Han's victory today truly opened our eyes. Yet the scrutiny in his gaze never faded. Han Da-min raised his cup and returned the courtesy with perfect composure. He understood well this was not a celebration but a chessboard. Every word was a move. Every glance concealed calculation. When the night grew deep, using the sound of the zither to mask his steps, Han Da-min quietly slipped out of the main hall. His instincts told him that Luck Kin Trun's timely intervention on the arena stage had not been simple goodwill. To the west of the intersect, spiritual energy fluctuated abnormally dense and cold. Hidden behind shadowed corridors, he discovered a spatial restriction sealed with a blood sigil. 3 gray-robed disciples carrying sacks of spirit crystals stepped into a newly opened rift and vanished. Han Da-min followed closely behind. What lay beyond was no ordinary rear courtyard but a foreign palace steeped in demonic aura. At the center of the grand hall, Luck Kin Da was circulating a forbidden art crimson spirit crystals revolving around his body. Above the formation array, an unfamiliar and frigid presence was slowly awakening. Han Jiamin knew he had just touched the true secret of Huin Cook's sect. Han Da-min had just retreated half a step into the shadows, when the grand hall suddenly fell into an eerie stillness. The spirit crystals revolving around Luke Kin Da froze for a brief instant, as if an invisible hand had touched the current of spiritual power. A soft female voice sounded behind him. "Have you seen enough?" The entire space trembled. The patterns carved into the palace walls lit up simultaneously, linking together into a massive formation array. The ceiling restriction closed in, and every path of retreat vanished. Han Jiaming turned around. At the top of the great hall steps, a woman in violet robes emerged slowly. Her eyes reflected the crimson glow of the spirit, crystals deep and cold to the bone. "Ming Yi." Luck Kin Da lowered his head respectfully. The woman gave a faint smile. "The Nether Spirit Hall is my domain. No fluctuation escapes my perception." Killing intent surged from all directions, pressing down on Han Da-min. Shadowy figures of foreign spirits began to materialize from the pillars and the ground itself. He understood clearly this was no longer an investigation into a hidden secret. He had stepped into a predator's den. Within the sealed space, Han Da-min slowly moved his hand behind his back. A deep resonant chime was about to ring once more, but this time it would not be to break a formation. It would be to carve out a path to survive. The demonic aura within the Nether Spirit Hall surged like a tide of black water, compressing every inch of space. As Ming Yi stepped down from the upper tier of the formation, her eyes reflected the sinister glow of the spirit crystals revolving around Luck Kin Da. With a mere flick of her hand, the entire restriction sealed shut. The exit vanished. "Little mouse, have you heard enough?" Her voice was soft yet cold to the marrow. Han Da-min did not retreat. The heavenly resonance ancient bell trembled faintly within his sleeve, releasing a low hum as if answering the darkness. He knew he had ventured too deep, but he had also seen what he needed to see. The foreign spirit race was recovering. Huin Cook's sect was no longer pure. And the coming conflict would no longer be mere duels upon an arena stage, but a struggle for survival between two powers. Above, spiritual force erupted. Below, the formation array began to shift. The bell tolled once more, not to shatter a formation but to herald a far greater battle. Han Da-min's story had only just begun. If you'd like to follow what happens next, whether he escapes the Nether Spirit Hall or exposes the entire conspiracy, leave the number 8 below to show your support and stay tuned for the next episode. Fu Thao Media Ven will see you in the next chapter.